Hi, so welcome to a new video, and I bought another job lot of cameras. Now this one actually came up in an eBay auction, and it was 7 cameras, an untested lot sold for parts straight repair. I noticed it because, or rather it stood out to me because it had a starting bid of £12 on it, and there were no current bids and nobody was watching it. So basically I thought, that's got to be worth a punt. So I put a maximum bid of £15 in. I think it had about 5 or 6 hours left to go, and then we actually went out because I had to go and do a shoot at a local brewery. Obviously I was out, we had some drinks, we were chatting to friends and things like that, and I completely forgot about it until we got home. Checked my emails and had a message there saying I'd won the auction, which quite surprised me. Went in and checked it, nobody had even bothered sniping me. £12 I got it for. So what this basically was £12 for 7 cameras and 1 flash unit. I had a rough idea about what some of it was going to be, but as is often the case, the photographs weren't exactly brilliant. So we've got 7 cameras, 1 flash unit, £12. I think I'm fairly safe to earn my money back here, but let's have a look, shall we? Right, let's start with the first camera, and this one is actually boxed. Look at that. So as you can quite clearly see there, it is a Kodak Instamatic 133. Now these came out in 1968, and if I just open this carefully so everything doesn't fall out, it's got a few bits missing, but it's got the original strap with it. It's got a flash cube, which still has 3 flashes left on it, and then I'll just take that out and put the box down. The camera itself, now as you can see, that's Instamatic 133. Now those of you who watch the channel may remember that in the first job lot I bought, which I'll post a link to up here, there was an Instamatic in that, an Instamatic 200, but it was completely corroded, wouldn't work in any way, shape or form. It was just completely useless. This one, however, is very, very clean and does actually work. And even more interestingly, I don't know if you can see that, there is a roll of film in there, or rather a pack of film. Now the film, you might just be able to make out the name there. This is Trifecta Colour Pack. Now that's a name you will definitely be forgiven for not knowing. I had to look it up. Trifecta were in the 60s and 70s a mail order film and development company, but they were quite unusual in that regard, in that they took motion picture film and repackaged it with the remjet layer still on it. So you had to send it back to them for processing because it needed the ECM2 process. Now the company went bust, I think, late 70s, early 80s. So this film has been in there, let's be generous and say, probably 50 years. Could be longer. So that's quite fun because it does work, and you may have noticed we're on shot 5 there. It was on shot 4, but I took it outside and tried pressing the button just to make sure the shutter appeared to fire and it appeared to wind on, which it did. So this is a working camera. But that film is ASA 64, which, let's be honest, if we go by the 1 stop per decade rule, and it's 50 years old, it's going to be 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2S ASA. I'm not expecting to get anything back on this. I don't even know where I would get it developed. I know of one company that might be worth trying. They may be able to develop a 126 ECN2 film, but I'm not holding my breath for anything useful coming out of it. So the film will most likely just become an interesting talking point. But yeah, first camera, one that's working. Okay, on to our second camera, and this is the one that mainly caused me to bid on this, and that is a Canon EOS 500. Now, the Canon EOS 500 came out in 1993. It was a Rebel model, I can't remember which one, in the US, and known as the Canon KISS in Japan. One interesting thing, the KISS in Japan had a switchable panorama mode on it, so you could actually flick a switch and it would put a little gate down that allowed you to take panoramic shots. Unfortunately, the European and American versions never got that, because I'd have loved to play around with that. That would have been brilliant. Now, it is a fairly standard consumer model camera. As you can see, it's fairly typical of Canon. You've got the dial over here, which has got the preset modes on it. Sorry, that's just my phone going off. Preset modes on it, your normal program, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, and then a few settings for ISO overrides and things like that. Yeah, advanced modes, etc, etc, hot shoe, and an LCD up there. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward. The nice thing about it is that it works perfectly well. So that was quite a pleasant find. It's actually in really quite nice condition as well. There's very few marks or heavy wear on it. There's just a few light scratches up the top there. Oh, it's got a built-in flash as well, which pops up. So that will join my other Canon EF lens mount cameras, so my 5 and my 5D, because it will take exactly the same lenses for that. So yeah, there we go. I've picked up another Canon 35mm film camera, this time a consumer level model one. So there we go. Okay, on to the flash gun. Now, all I could see in the advert was this, that it was a Canon flash, or it was in a Canon flash pouch. Didn't know which model it was. Now, the actual model turned out to be, so that is a Speedlight 220EX. Go on, focus. There we go. Now, these are a fairly small and reasonably cheap flash, but they actually had the ETTL and an IR range sensor on there, so you don't get the pre-flash that blinds people, so they're not annoying either. And if you take a look on Ken Rockwell's website for the 220EX, he absolutely swears by these things as a nice, easy, pocketable flash with a really good accurate guide number for the flash on there, around about 22 I think the guide number for this is, that works extremely well with a wide range of cameras. These will work with ETTL mode going back to the Canon T90 up through all of the EOS 35mm range, so that includes both my 500 I've just shown you and my EOS 5. And will even work, I think the last model he mentioned it working with digital-wise was an EOS 5D Mark II. So this will work with my EOS 5 Classic. So, and it works perfectly well. So that's a really good pickup there. I don't normally expect much out of flash guns from job lots, but this one, I've actually got something usable out of it. That's great. Right, up next we have the first of 3 film-based point and shoots, and this one is a Minolta Vectus 100. Now this is a fairly typical and standard APS camera, fairly cheap end one. I have popped a battery in there and it does work, but at the end of the day, APS film you can't get anymore unless you want to buy expired stuff overpriced off of the web. And as I mentioned during my second job lot video, link up there, where I picked up 2 APS cameras in the job lot, I'm not really interested in spending the money on the film for these. It's not worth it. If I ever pick up an APS SLR, I might think about it, but it works. So that is now 3 working, none faulty. It's a good ratio so far, but yes, not particularly excited about this one. Next up, for the second of our point and shoots, we have this. Now, this is an interesting one. It's said to be made by, go on, get in focus, a company called Boots. Now, if you don't live in the UK, you might not know what the hell that is. It's a UK company that basically, it's a chemist, retailers, pharmacy, those kind of things. But in the past, they used to do an awful lot of photographic stuff. So they used to do a lot of film development, sell a lot of films, and they also sold cameras. And a lot of the time, they got other cameras rebadged for them. So this is the Boots C35AF. It's actually a rebadged Ricoh AF35. Now, it takes AA batteries, it's got a Ricoh 35 f3.9 lens on it, and it appears to be in fairly clean condition, but unfortunately, as I will demonstrate, if you pop batteries in it, that's all it does. So yeah, its brain is fried somewhere along the lines there, unfortunately. So this one is our first, that's very annoying, our first not working one. So that's, by my count, 1, 2, 3 working, 1 faulty so far. Right, our final 35mm point and shoot. And I've got to look at the front of this to remember what the hell it's called. Right, it's a Praktica Report Panoramic Switcher. Sorry, switchable panorama. I was close there. So this is quite an interesting little camera, and this one does work. So what you've got is a switch down the bottom, slide it across, that opens up the door, slide it over again, and that switches on the flash. So fairly straightforward. You've also got a little switch there that puts it in macro mode, that just basically pops the lens out a little bit further. It's not a particularly close macro mode. It did come with an instruction book. This, if I remember correctly, it allows you to go down to 80 centimetres, so not something that's worth writing home about. But arguably the most interesting bit of it is this little switch just here that says Panorama. Now, what happens if I just pop the back open, and this is a bit awkward to do, but I'll try and get it done, is if I slide this down, you'll see it pops a couple of gates over the film. Shutter area just here. So what it effectively does is give you that old 80s, 90s standby of a panorama, just basically by cropping the top and bottom of a 35mm exposure. But the nice thing is, or rather the interesting thing is, you can actually switch between standard and panoramic halfway through a roll, which is quite neat and quite nice. And as you can hear, it's working. Also, one other oddity, that little wheel there is actually a diopter adjustment for the standard tunnel viewfinder there. I don't think I've ever seen on a point and shoot like this a diopter adjustment on a tunnel viewfinder. That's quite unusual. But yeah, this little one is from 1990. This one came from, same with the little Ricoh that I just pointed out a moment ago. But yeah, I think I'll probably end up giving this one a go. Why the hell not? It's an interesting little oddity. So yeah, that's the Praktica Report Panorama Switchable. Sorry, no, Switchable Panorama. I'm never going to get that right. I may as well give up while I'm ahead on that. So that now is 4 working, 1 faulty. This is a good batch so far. Okay, our final 2 cameras are both digital cameras, and the first one is from 2003. We have the Kodak EasyShare DX6490. So 4 megapixel CCD sensor, bridge camera with a 10 times optical zoom on it, which, if I remember, it's about 35 to 200 or something daft like that. It's got a hefty zoom on it. If I flick the switch on the back, you will notice that it does indeed power up. You'll also be able to see there is some damage to, or basically damage to the LCD screen on the back. It's got a switchable EVF, so you can use the EVF or the LCD just by hitting a switch on there. Reasonable range of modes. The zoom still works. Little pop-up flash. The autofocus appears to work quite well on it as well. I'm quite impressed with this for its time and age. Also, one other unusual thing about its age is most bridge cameras of this kind of vintage, or even really a little bit later, tended to run with AA batteries. Either 2 or more commonly 4 AA batteries. This one doesn't, and actually runs with a built-in rechargeable battery. And I must confess, I didn't think this one was working when I first got it, because when I picked it out of the box, the lens was about halfway out there, and it wasn't doing anything. The battery was completely dead. I popped the battery in the charger, and I just got a red light on the charger, indicating a charging failure. I was kind of like, this one's going to be absolutely useless then. I'm just going to have to put this to one side. But as I was taking the battery out of the charger, I noticed that one of the pins had kind of come out and got twisted and was making contact with one of the other pins. So got a pair of tweezers, tweaked it out, pushed it back in, popped the battery in, flashing green light, battery charged it up for a couple of hours, and hey presto, a working camera. Good range of modes on it. We'll even do manual. It has a PASM, so program, aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual mode on it. It's quite a neat, nice little thing. And this one actually blew me away. I was quite surprised when I was looking at it. You've got all these little rubber covers over the side here. This one actually has a PC socket on it for external flash. You can use this with external flash. And these things retailed for, I think it was £699 at launch back in 2003. So yeah, I'm quite pleased that that little beastie was working. So that's another one. We are now 5 working, 1 faulty. Let's see what the last camera brings. So our final camera is the Sony Cybershot, I've got to remember the model number here, DSC P72. So again from 2003, this is a CCD sensor, 3.2 megapixel camera. It's got an absolutely tiny little screen on the back of it. It's very light, very compact, tunnel viewfinder on it again, your standard kind of expected modes, but most of what you've got on here is automatic. It doesn't have the PASM that the Kodak we were looking at a moment ago did, but it does fire up perfectly well. Everything works as expected. Yeah, it's all fairly nice, neat and straightforward. So ooh, look at that, it's looking for things in the dark. There. Sorry about blinding you with that. So yeah, this one also works, and I'm going to enjoy messing around with these last two because I like putting CCD sensor cameras through their paces, and I think these now are probably 2 of the earliest that I've actually picked up, so it'll be interesting to see how these fare. But with the Sony working as well, that basically makes 6 working cameras out of 7, only 1 failure. So that for me is a good good buy. £12 for all of this lot. I perfectly couldn't be happier as far as that goes, because you know I've more than earned my money back. Hell, oh yeah, I forgot to mention on this one, it uses the proprietary Sony memory cards, the larger ones, and interestingly this one has a whole 16 megabytes on it, not 16 gig, 16 megabytes, which will allow me on this to capture exactly 7 photographs, which is quite interesting. So it's going to be a challenge, this one. 7 shots at a time, because I don't have a spare one of those and I'm not going out and buying one to use with this. But there we go. Those are the 7 cameras, 6 working, 1 not working. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about these. Did you ever own any of these? Have you ever bought a job lot, etc, etc? And if you've enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.